What's going on, everyone? I'm Jaren, and today we are talking about Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. This latest screen adaptation of the world's most popular role playing game is directed and co written by John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, who have directed movies like Game Night and are the co writers of Spider Man Homecoming. The story follows a charming thief and an unlikely band of adventurers as they embark on a quest to retrieve a lost relic, but things go dangerously awry when they run afoul with the wrong people. Let me just start off by saying that I have only played several sessions of a campaign scattered around like 6 months of time, and it's not that I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm also not completely well knowledged to be doing any contrast or comparing videos from game to movie. There's a lot of different YouTube videos for that. I mean, if you're craving D&D content, I highly recommend Deerstalker Pictures on YouTube. They have some really fun stuff. Big shout out to one of my best friends and Dungeon Master, Seth Yamada, for introducing that to me. I also think that Dan Harmon's Community TV show has a few episodes which really shows a lot of love and appreciation for D&D as well. I also haven't seen any other movie or TV show or animated adaptations of Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't plan on to. But I'm kind of happy to hear that, especially with games, especially with huge IPs such as the Super Mario Bros. Or even D&D, that people are willing to show up for these movies, have a complete blast of fun and excitement, regardless of what people are going to say on the internet. It's a theater going experience that I've truly missed, and Dungeons and Dragons does it. I had a lot of fun with it unexpectedly. Wow. Now, instead of breaking the third and fourth wall where we follow a narrative of a tabletop campaign, I think Daly and Goldstein decided to approach this a lot differently and immerse the audience in a much more specific tale based on the Forgotten Realms. I think the script did a pretty good job into not alienating non-fans and really introducing and easing them into this new fantasy world. And I really like that it also didn't talk down to a lot of the hardcore and faithful fans of the original source material that know this inside and out. One example would probably be the new Dune movie, and I have not read the book. I have not seen the original movie, but I saw the new movie and I was afraid, oh man, I'm gonna be completely lost. I'm not gonna understand shit. But I was eased into it. A lot of the execution and the presentation was just something to be a new fan of, and I really enjoyed that. The tone of the film was absolutely perfect. I'm actually glad that they didn't go in a much more darker route and be overly serious. And I think that even if a lot of the references and jokes don't land with the general audience, there is a lot of physical, visual, well written, and very well executed humor to be had. I also like that the action scenes that were scattered throughout the adventure was very well crafted, especially when it came to the choreography or even the use of CGI and practical effects. And I really like the way that they handle the character development here. And I really like that it wasn't afraid to have a little bit of heart, be sentimental, and actually feel the stakes of our heroes. Speaking of heroes, this cast is stacked. We got Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Regé Jean Page, Justice Smith, Sophia Lillis, Hugh Grant, Chloe Coleman, and even Daisy Head. Chris Pine has definitely become an actor who has shown significant growth in his career, going from movies like Just My Luck, where he's just like the heartthrob, to 2009's Star Trek, where he's still a heartthrob, but he's also becoming the action hero, to movies like Hell or High Water, where he's not just the action and good looking guy, but he also has range and depth when it comes to his performance. And I like how in here he's kind of the typical leading male who only has charm and comes up with the plans to all the missions. And he's quite a contrast to Regé Jean Page's character, who is the honorable man, who is overly handsome and heroic. And especially when it comes down to a lot of the dialogue that he speaks, he's very into it. He's very serious and Shakespearean and just very articulate, that it's quite funny to see those two sort of clash but yet work together in a movie like this. Now, I love that Michelle Rodriguez is no stranger when it comes to hand-to-hand combat sequences, as well as just action movies in general. She's done the Resident Evil franchise, the Fast and Furious franchise, and even showed up in Avatar. But I feel like she really had the spotlight in this one, and she is honestly at her best. Justice Smith is a talent, but I feel like he always gets typecasted when it comes to these awkward and low self esteem type of characters, especially with movies like Paper Towns or Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom or Pokemon Detective Pikachu. But he is a semi talented sorcerer, which, you know, does bring something different to the table, and I think he has a lot to play around with here. Sophia Lillis as Doric the Druid. She was someone that I was very much looking forward to when watching this movie. I think that they bring her in just a little bit too late into the story that I almost wouldn't mind if they made a spin-off version of just her as our main focus. She had some amazing action sequences, especially when she shapeshifts into that owl bear. But I did read an article that that's actually one of the bigger downfalls of the movie because in recent D&D rules, a druid is unable to transform into an owl bear for some reason because they can only transform into beasts or elementals on occasions, but not specifically an owl bear because those are considered classifieds. Hugh Grant and Daisy Head were the main villains of this movie, but I do feel like they were the weakest part. Maybe they weren't well developed, or that's just how the story rolls. You know, we wanted to focus on more of the heroes, but I do feel like there are various elements that does override my criticism, especially for that one. I know it's a little bit of a nitpick, but I really loved and admired the balance of practical effects, costume and makeup designs, and CGI. I thought all of those things just went really well together and it didn't lean on too much of one or the other. And also the production design, as well as crafting all the set pieces together. I thought there was so much love, effort, and appreciation that really went into this. Amongst one of the funniest scenes involving the corpses in the graveyard, or even the most thrilling being the maze of the tournament, I do feel, as a little bit of a nitpick, that there were a few missed opportunities here. And one of them would have to be that they could have included some stat sheets when introducing some of our cast ensemble. The other one would have to be they have one good cameo in this movie, and I feel like with a lot of the behind the scenes drama with how much celebrities actually wanted to get involved in this movie, I feel like we could have had cameos dropping all over this entire film, kind of like what Marvel and Star Wars has been doing. And I know that's a little bit subjective, but I do feel like if they were leaning towards this fun, not so serious route, they could have done it. Also, I think for a post-credit scene, we could have gotten a little bit of a tabletop campaign, break that third and fourth wall, and actually have more cameos just joining in, actually playing D&D, and who's playing all these characters, kind of like a Jumanji situation. Overall, this was irresistibly a much better adaptation than what it was marketed for. I think that if you are not a fan or are unfamiliar with Dungeons and Dragons, but you love movies like Guardians of the Galaxy or The Lord of the Rings or even Monty Python, I think you'll have a whole lot of fun. And if you are a faithful and hardcore fan of Dungeons and Dragons, but are still very hesitant about seeing this, I think you'd be surprised at how much you'd find to appreciate in a film like this. With the tagline Honor Among Thieves, I hope that Hollywood will make a Dungeons and Dragons cinematic universe, not necessarily a direct sequel, but let us explore different realms, expand the ensemble cast, and even approach this with stories of various subgenres so we can get a little bit of flavor, you know, give us a little bit more. Alright, guys, that's all I got to share about that movie. If you've checked it out already, good for you. If you have a chance to actually see it in your local area, go and check it out right away. It's also available on VOD, and I think it'll be available on physical media at the end of the month. But I'm definitely wanting to see this movie again. I had a blast with it. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Look forward to more reviews. I am Jaren Ugbanawag, and I will see you guys at the movies. Take care.